access phone number is 646-749-3122. We're going to repeat that. Phone number is 646-749-3122. And the meeting number is 791-645-725. That's 791-645-725, and I'll repeat it once again. Jim, do you want to say something before we do the pledge?
Yeah, and then just pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.8 and the Governor's State of Public Health Emergency Declaration, and I hate that I've read that every time and there's a wording problem in that. This meeting is being held electronically because of the ongoing public health emergency in the state of Iowa that has made it impossible to have a meeting in person. And again, you stated the phone number, and you'll state it again for those who want to participate.
All right, would you like to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathleen, roll call, please.
Moffitt,
Yes.
Raker,
Here.
Phillips,
Here.
Kreitzer,
Here.
Graham Murray.
Here.
Okay, once again, the public access phone number is 646-749-3122. Rich, is there a possibility to get that on the streaming on the bottom? And then also meeting number 791-645-725. Just something to think about. We're going to go on to the consent agenda. On the consent today, excuse me, is finances and miscellaneous, minutes of previous meetings, payroll and city claims. I'm going to pull the beer, liquor, wine, and cigarettes permits. We'll discuss that at the end of the meeting. Reports and bonds, resolutions. Resolution number 1, approving the nuisance abatements for various properties. Resolution number 2, approving a memorandum of understanding between the City of Burlington, Iowa and the City of West Burlington, Iowa for the 2020 West Avenue and Gear Avenue Dow Bar retrofit project. Number 3 is resolution for the support of the Great River Road All-American Road designation by Federal Highway Administration. Number 4 is a resolution approving the agreement with Klinger and Associates for designing of a retaining wall at the roadway to the wastewater treatment plant. Number 5 is a resolution approving a professional service agreement with Klinger and Associates for the design of the water main at the wastewater treatment plant. Number 6 is a resolution approving amendment number 1 to the agreement of H.R. Green of Cedar Rapids, Iowa for engineering services to Burlington, Iowa wastewater treatment facilities, North End Odor Control. Number 7 is a resolution approving the amendment number 1 to the existing professional service agreement with H.R. Green of Cedar Rapids, Iowa for general consulting services for the Burlington, Iowa wastewater treatment facility for a period of June 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Number 8 is a resolution approving the federal aid agreement for Iowa's Transportation Alternatives Program, Iowa's TAP project, between the Iowa Department of Transportation and the City of Burlington. And we're going to set a date for public hearing, May 4th, 2020. Consideration of ordinance amendment to the ordinance number 3220, an ordinance creating the Sunrise West Planned Unit Development, PUD, overlay district by removing Outlot G from Sunrise West PUD. A hearing consideration and ordinance rezoning Lot 4 of the Swisher subdivision and Outlot G of the 4th edition of Sunrise West subdivision from R1 to single-family residential to R4 multifamily residential with the planned unit development overlay zone of Beverly Place, PUD, as allowed by the zoning code of the City of Burlington, Iowa. Number 3 is a hearing for the consideration of the ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 161 in the Housing Code of the City of Burlington Municipal Code. Sorry, threw me off. Number 4 is a hearing for the consideration of ordinance vacating and selling a portion of Connor Avenue right-of-way located north of Court Street, Burlington, Iowa. And we have one appointment, which is the Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission's Revolving Loan Fund Review Committee for Jim Olson. All these matters listed under the consent agenda have been having been discussed previously, are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of the items except for beer, liquor, wine, and cigarettes permits for tonight. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent, which we have done, and will be considered separately. Can I get a motion?
Your Honor, I have a motion to approve all listed under item 1 consent agenda except for beer, liquor, wine, and cigarettes.
Okay,
Second?
moved and seconded. Kathleen?
Want to see if the public?
Oh, that's right. Does anybody on the phone have a item they'd like removed from the consent? Nobody's calling in, and nobody in the hallway from city staff has anything they want to remove? Don? No? Okay. Kathleen?
Mopin,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Yes.
Okay, number one, we have a hearing statement of consideration of the Consolidated Transit Grant application. That would be Nick or Jim? Nick? Hi, Nick.
Sorry.
Hey, Nick.
Good evening. So this public hearing involves the Consolidated Transit Grant application. We submit this on an annual basis to the Iowa DOT to get funds, the FTA or STA funds, state and federal transit association monies. The FTA funds for the fiscal year 21 look like they have an estimate value that they're going to give us, $469,665. That is up about $10,000 from the previous year. And the STA funds is $256,978. It's actually down a little bit from last year. These funds are formulated from miles and then ridership from 2 years in the rear. So they go into a formula that the DOT calculates, and you get a percentage based on the amount of monies that are going to go into that category, and that's what kicks out and how we get the value that we're getting from that. This also puts together a transit improvement plan, or the TIP, where we put our vehicle purchases for the next 5 years on that. You can see that I have laid out in the memo talking about the vehicles over the next 5 years. Since I've been here every year, this is shuffled around and moved because of the miles that you're putting on a bus. 1 year it all calculates out into points through the DOT. There's always a formula with the DOT, and this is the PTMS, and I do not know what that acronym means. So based on the point level is kind of where I shuffle what buses I think will get or they'll go for a 80-20 match on a grant to be funded, and that's something that's reflected in the CIP for the next several years. Other than that, we need this money to be able to operate. I know that I discussed a little bit of the CARES funding last week. The $1.3 million that we're going to get, that's a separate conversation. This is our annual appropriation for fiscal year 21. That'll come as a separate contract. They talked about getting that out pretty quick, so we should see those contracts, I think, next week. So if there's any questions on the consolidated app, I can answer those.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions? We have anybody online yet? Jessica? Okay, not yet. Okay, anybody, council, you have any questions for Nick on it?
When do you expect to have the CARES conversation?
On capital funding? I get new information from the DOT all the time. So what they are going to do is put 50% of the monies of the 1.354 million as operating monies for us. The rest of it, they are going to essentially leave alone until they have more information.
Okay.
So the problem with this is it was, decided in late March and then given to the DOT to try and figure out how to use it and how it all works. There will be some different statistical tracking that we're going to have to do with this based on what our lost revenues are, and we can prove that through lost fares and things like that, or extra operational costs. But as far as the capital, they have not spelled that out on how that's going to work yet. I don't know if it's 100% grant. I assume that it is, but they have not said that.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Nick? Can I get a motion?
Your Honor, I have a motion to close.
Second.
When you are ready, Kathleen?
Mopin,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Yes.
Your Honor, I have a resolution approving consolidated transit grant application.
Second.
When you are ready, Kathleen?
Mopin,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed. So, next up is the ordinance for a motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance amending the chapter 163A.07 of the Burlington, Iowa Code of Ordinances concerning hearing rights in the case of junk vehicles. Mr. Tislin.
I need a second.
Oh, second.
Second.
Sorry. Now, Mr. Tislin.
So this is the second reading, no changes from the previous reading. Again, adding some language into the 163A section of our city code for junk vehicles that references the notice of right to hearing. It currently is listed in chapter 163, our environmental nuisances, and is referenced in this chapter, but just not explicitly laid out. So we want to make that especially clear for people that they have that right.
Okay. Anybody, do we have anybody online? No, still? Does council have any questions for Eric?
We're going to the final.
So that's up for discussion. So if there's no questions, do we want to entertain a motion to amend to a final reading?
So moved.
Should be in
Second.
your packet.
Should be in your packet. You got it.
I think maybe Rinker has it.
Bill has it. Bill, go ahead and read the amendment.
To amend the motion for preliminary adoption of the second reading of an ordinance amending chapter 163A.07 of the Burlington, Iowa Code of Ordinance concerning hearing rights in the case of junk vehicles to read as follows. For waiver of the preliminary consideration and adoption of the second reading and for final adoption of the ordinance amending chapter 163A.07 of the Burlington, Iowa Code of Ordinance concerning hearing rights in the case of junk vehicles.
Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Just need a second.
Second.
No, second. Any discussion on the amendment? I keep forgetting seconds. Sorry, guys. No? Can we vote on the amendment, please?
Mopin,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Aye.
Now we want to vote on the original motion as amended.
Mopin,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to resolutions. Resolution approving or providing the sale and issuance of $5,710,000 of general obligation corporate purpose bonds, Series 2020C, for the levy of taxes to pay the same.
I need a second.
Second.
Jim?
This is part of our capital improvement plan. We've had several steps along the way for borrowing new money to do two main things, some street work in the amount of about $1.5 million and $4.2 million for flood wall improvements. We went through a process with Piper Sandler, and we came out of it a little bit different than typical just because of the extenuating circumstances this year, but we were able to go get bonds placed. Key Government Finance Incorporated. These are payable through 2034. 2.3% interest rate. They are not callable for the first 84 months. After that, it could be refinanced. The resolution also spells out the repayment schedule for those bonds over the 14 years and authorizes a collection of taxes to pay for it and has a schedule for the collection of taxes to be paid over that 14-year time frame to cover the bonds on this. The flood wall is designed to be paid for out of tax increment financing, and the streets out of the general obligation bonds, which would, debt service levy.
Okay. Is there anyone online yet? Jessica? No? Okay. Anybody on council have any questions for Jim as he walks away? I guess not. So, can I get a motion?
Ready to vote.
Oh, ready to vote, I'm sorry. Resolutions.
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips.
Aye.
Kreitzer.
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Aye.
Okay, number 2 is a resolution rejecting all bids for the 2020 Dankworth Park Tennis Court resurfacing project, continued from April 6, 2020 City Council meeting. Eric?
This specific resolution was brought forward based on receiving bids for the Dankworth Park Tennis Court resurfacing on March 2nd. We did receive one bid from All Weather Courts in the amount of $182,100. We had $105,000 designated from Starker funds for this. At the time, we did not have an identified outside funding source, so we recommend to reject the bids. Since that time, Burlington Tennis Association and Brian Japson have stepped forward and done some fundraising efforts that I'll talk about in the next resolution, but we would recommend you vote no on this, and then we have a second resolution to approve the bid.
Okay. Any questions for Eric? No? Kathleen, let's vote.
Mopin.
No.
Rinker.
No.
Phillips.
Nay.
Kreitzer. No. Graham Murray.
No.
All right. Sorry, I had to get a nay in there. Number 3, a resolution approving the bids for the 2020 Dankworth Park Tennis Court resurfacing project. Eric?
Second.
Again,
Short.
this is a project that has been on the docket for quite a while with council and Parks Department that we'd like to see completed. The Burlington Tennis Association, again, and Brian Jaspin have stepped up quite a bit on this and kind of tried to meet that funding gap between the Starker funds and outside funds that had not yet been identified. Today, we did receive a check for $11,500 from the Tennis Association from Brian dropping off. They've also have committed from foundations $69,000 or $57,500. So those between the check and the two foundations, that's $69,000. And then there's other donations that are still coming in that have been committed to the Tennis Association. So we expect over $72,000 at a minimum, which would just leave a $5,000 shortfall, and hopefully they can even make that up over time between now and when it actually occurs. So
I know he's still working on it, that's for sure, so. Is anybody on the phone yet? Okay, does council have any questions for Eric? I just want to go on record, Brian and Renee Japson, absolutely fantastic. You can see your love for the game, and thank you for stepping up to help the city get this project done. I think this project's been on the docket for 3 years now, since the three of us were elected, so without your help, it would not happen. So if we were doing mayor's awards, which we will, get ready, you're going to be one of the first recipients. So Kathleen, can we have a vote, please?
Mopin.
Yes.
Rinker.
Yes.
Phillips.
Aye.
Kreitzer.
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Yes, please.
Okay, number 4, resolution approving the acceptance of STBG funds for the improvements on Summer Street from Harrison Avenue South to Kestner Street intersection.
Second.
This,
Nick.
the resolution in front of you will accept the awarded amount notified from the Regional Planning Office of $1.15 million. We had sent in a grant application in December, as you might remember, after discussion of our 5-year road plan for summer. We requested $1.45 million, which is about 50% of the project. At that time, we didn't know how much money they had. We've been awarded the full amount that they have available. And so the rest of the project would have to be funded from the city, leaving about $1.8 million of funding needed to complete the estimated project costs. This project is Summer Street from Harrison south to Kestner. It would involve concrete, curb and gutter, and a widening of the project. As you may remember, some of the federal requirements that follow SCBG is lane width requirements. Some of the reason why Madison had to have its changes. We have the availability. There's really no competition from property owners or sidewalks there, so we're able to extend that out. It'll also involve some storm sewer. Actually, some pretty good benefits along the east side of Summer as it gets closer to Kestner. There's a ditch down there, and we actually have a sewer line right underneath of it, so it attributes, in my beliefs, to a lot of I&I issues. So I think it's a good project. I think we should accept the money that we have here and make this project work, so.
When will this project kick off?
It'll be a calendar year 2024, so fiscal year 25 is when it'll be planned for.
And this is where the shoulder's kind of just deteriorating out.
Yeah, without being able to contain or push against the edge of that roadway, it starts to ravel away, and you can see that right now. It's in pretty poor shape, so. We'll try and maintain it and patch it as best we can to keep it till, functional till we get it replaced.
Do we have anybody online yet? Okay, just in case you've tuned in midway, just a second, Nick. A public access phone number is 646-749-3122. Meeting number is 791-645-725, in case someone tuned in second or late. Does anybody else have any other questions for Nick on this? No? All right, Kathleen, can we have a vote, please?
Moffitt,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips.
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Yes.
Okay, next up is resolution approving a modified creative placemaking project for the Rural Business Development Grant through the USDA Rural Development in the state of Iowa. Eric,
Second.
1 second. Jeez, my bad. Failed the whole meeting.
So the council previously approved application for funds through the USDA for a creative placemaking project. We had other outside funding contributing to this as well. We applied for $74,000. We were awarded $35,500. Based on that reduction in funding, they allowed us to reduce the scope to be key building revitalization and housing strategies. This did eliminate the public art strategy from the project. In talking with them, we are able to reduce the local match amount as well. To do a project, a minimum project has to be $51,000. Minimum local match has to be $15,500. That has been committed. We do have not received confirmation that those funds are still available from those other sources. So I know we do have the $1,000 contribution and a $750 contribution on hand. We did reach out to the other entities to see if the city does not contribute funds, if they still want to maintain their current funding level, and have not heard back yet. So we'd recommend approving this resolution. If they decide they don't want to move forward, then coming back to council and seeing if you have any funds available or want to change course at that time. But based on the funds that had been previously committed, we have enough funds to move forward with the project. It's just, we don't know, their contribution was somewhat based on knowing the city was contributing as well. Now, if we're not, we don't know if that's still there. So do have messages out, but I have not heard back if they're
Okay.
willing to stay in. If they are willing to stay in, we can still move forward with this project as presented here. But if they want to reduce their amount or not able to still fund their amount, then we may have to make some changes. So don't have a great answer for you now, but if everything holds, then we will be able to move forward.
So we're not tied to this if we approve it?
No,
It's
this,
gonna have to come back?
yeah,
Okay.
this resolution does not commit the city to any funds, but if those other funds maintain, we can still move forward with the project. But if they don't, then we'd have to come back to council and see
Okay.
if you want to make any changes or just try and apply again in a future year.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? Do we have anybody online? No? Kathleen, can we have a vote? Please.
Moffitt,
Yes.
Rinker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Yes.
All right, number 6 is a resolution approving the purchase of land at 700 Valley, Burlington, Iowa.
Second.
Thank you. I didn't stop before I said it. Eric, how you doing? Good.
So this is a property south of existing city parking lot on the corner of 7th and Valley Street. Has been used for personal parking for quite some time. Based on some of the discussion with Tiger and parking in downtown, we did reach out to the individual and he was willing to sell it basically at the assessed value price to the city, which would allow us to expand and hopefully make that parking a little more useful in the future. Right now, there aren't funds designated to make improvements, but would be something hopefully in the future we'd be able to do. But This resolution is approving or authorizing moving forward with the purchase of land in the amount of $12,000 from the current owner. We would have to bring forward a purchase agreement indeed for council approval, but we need your approval before we start that process.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Is there anybody online yet? No? Kathleen, can we have a vote, please?
Mopin,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Phillips.
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Yes.
Okay, number 7, resolution approving the final payment and release of retention monies for Phase 5 of the flood wall. Nick,
Second.
Nick.
This resolution, I spoke at the end of at the work session last week. This is the final pay and release of retention. I say that because we've released retention funds twice prior to. The original was like 260-some thousand, and then we released like 65,000, with 10,000 remaining, and that's what we're releasing here. The project cost hasn't gone up or nothing's been affected. The reason why we hadn't is because there were some cracks that needed to have a certain kind of filler. I don't remember what it was in them, and we had flood waters on them the whole time, so they couldn't go in and correct the issue. So that has been completed. Our engineer on the project, Veenstra and Kim, has approved this. So the project cost, I could outline it in the memo. Total construction cost is $6.5 million. And so I would recommend approval of releasing these $10,000 and final paying and in the contract.
Okay, any questions for Nick on that, council? No one online? Kathleen, let's have a vote, please.
Mopin,
Yes.
Baker,
Yes.
Phillips.
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes, please.
Graham Murray.
Yes.
Okay, now we'll circle back, as the chief here, we're gonna circle back to the consent, the item that was pulled, which is beer, liquor, wine, and beer licenses. Chief,
Wait, are you introducing that resolution right now?
I am,
Second.
yes, thank you.
The reason I asked this to be pulled off there is these approvals come across my desk pretty early on, so Kathleen has time to file the paperwork with the Alcohol Beverages Division for the state of Iowa. So this came up last week, and actually the end of March, the proclamation from the governor declared those businesses need to be closed per a public health code. And so throughout that process, one of them, Kelly O'Shea's, remained open past the closing time, which was at noon on March 17th. So the owner of that business was charged on March 18th with the public health code violation, which was set out by the governor. There's a court hearing coming up late August of this year in regards to that charge for the owner of Kelly O'Shea's. The Alcohol Beverages Division last week sent out an email asking to report to them any violations of that health code violation. So I sent them the information last week and got word today that they had assigned an investigator into that public health code violation. During my conversation with the gentleman from the Alcohol Beverages Division, he had asked if I had notified the local authorities or the local governing board, which is you as the city council, about the violation, so you can make a decision on the renewal of that liquor license, which is set to expire, I think it's May 15th, if there's any action that you wish to take. In regards to that, I had talked to him at length in regards to that. He said that he said he will investigate it even though the local authority may still approve the liquor license or not approve it. He'd still investigate it regardless, either way. So the renewal of the liquor license, the middle part of May, you could still approve it, and we could still visit this after the pending court action that's happening later on this year to visit whether or not you as a local authority want to take action against that business for this violation or a person being convicted of this violation later on this year. We are really at the stages, or at the stage in this charge of it just being merely that, a charge, and he's not been proven guilty in a court of law. And so it's an allegation at this point and has to proceed through the court system. So with me saying that, I don't want you to think because approving this liquor license now, set to expire May 15th, that you cannot go back and revisit this. We can still revisit this later on this year once the outcome, we know the outcome in criminal court,
Okay.
if that makes sense. I wanted to bring it to your attention so you know that this happened March 17th. The person was charged, the owner of the business was charged, and if there's further discussion that needs to happen in this after that that charge has gone through the court system in criminal court, we can bring that topic back up at that time and talk about revocation of his liquor license, if that's necessary.
Refresh my memory, he wasn't the only establishment to violate that order, right? Or was he? That was reported.
There was other businesses that were reported to be still open after that noon closing time. Those businesses were contacted once we received a complaint that they were still open. They were contacted and came in compliance with the governor's order.
So is this the only establishment that didn't do it after the initial
That,
contact?
that refused to comply with the order after being notified by myself and the major. So that is why I asked to pull it off the consent agenda, just to make you aware of it. Not that we need to not approve the renewal. We can still approve the renewal, and the Alcohol Beverages Division will still do their investigation separate from what we do here, but they just wanted to make the local governing authority, which is you as a city council, aware of it, that this is going on, and if you wanted to take action now, that would be your prerogative, or you could wait.
Chief, have you had problems with this establishment before? Like underage service or anything like that, or any other problems that crop up and come across your desk, or is this the first time they?
Not that I'm
Okay.
aware of.
Okay, all right.
Well, I think for us particularly, this isn't a court of law, so I don't know that we are the appropriate body to start disseminating punishment. You said that I'm sorry, which agency, the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms?
No, the Alcohol Beverages Division,
Okay.
Iowa ABD.
So they're gonna conduct their investigation, and then they will determine whether or not they keep their license at that point,
They can,
after the court case?
they can do things like, and I'm just gonna throw out a scenario to you. For instance, like if we have a bar that serves to an underage person, they will go in and they implement sanctions, whether it's a 3-day suspension, 7-day suspension. They have a set standard. I think at the first offense is 7 days, the second offense is 14 days. They'll suspend their liquor license for that amount of days, or they can revoke it for egregious violations or continued violations. So they have a process that ABD works through to gain compliance from the business owner or the liquor license holder.
So if they're found to be, if they're found guilty of the charge, that the citation that they received, then at that point, it would be brought back forward and we would determine whether or not they get to keep that license, or the alcohol, or the beverage division would do that.
Either way, I'm not sure how the ABD is going to handle it, if they're going to do it before that or if they're going to wait until after the criminal proceedings have happened. So that's up to them how they do that. I would, like I said, it's an allegation at this point. It hasn't been tried in criminal court.
That's my biggest concern, is I don't want to take steps without there being some type of legal, what are your guys' thoughts?
Well, is it possible they'd be facing a fine or something? Some other?
Possibly, yeah.
Yes, yeah, in criminal court.
Yeah,
yes.
so it sounds like somebody else is in place to do the punishment, not necessarily us. That's how I feel.
Yeah,
Well, but we
it's-
also are given the task of
Yeah, it's still on-
Revoking, yes.
overseeing whether or not
Right.
we approve it again.
It's
Which is
still,
the problem.
I guess, I know the owner, full disclosure, if we had a problem with, hindsight's 20/20. It was not the greatest notification about this closure. We had a 2-hour notice from the time they're supposed to open and close. And understanding that and not official, it really put the city, in my opinion, it really put the PD in a hard spot on a tough day. But that being said, if the court date's till August, I think we have to let the guy, if he hasn't been a problem operator, I think we have to let him operate until the court date. And then either ABD or us can decide whether we want to revoke it or fine him. So.
It's possible with COVID-19, it might not even be open in August. still.
Chief, what's your
Thanks for that.
recommendation?
Thanks for that.
What I ask for, and the officers ask for, and what we look for typically when we bring a liquor license to the council, or I would bring it to the council, would be those establishments that do not give compliance to the officers when they're there. If we have a continuous amount of criminal activity going on inside the bar, or continued non-compliance with what's going on there after we ask them to do that. It's typically not the one circumstance that I would come to you and advise you or ask you to revoke the liquor license of that establishment unless we've had numerous issues there or continued problems there after we've asked for compliance. I'm talking about an allegation right now of just one violation of non-compliance of the health code. And I guess my recommendation to you now is, if I was in your seat, I would probably approve the liquor license, and if something comes up later down the road that you choose to revisit it, I would be able to bring that back to you after the criminal court proceeding, is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chief.
That sounds like a good idea.
Appreciate your recommendation, thank you.
No
Do we have
troubles.
anybody online? No? Any other questions for the chief? Kathleen, can we vote on it, please? Thank you,
Monmouth,
Chief.
Thank you.
Yes.
Raker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.
Kreitzer,
Yes.
Graham Murray.
Aye.
Okay, now we're at the section with comments of the audience, but there's no one on the phone. We'll give you a couple minutes to call in while we go through staff. Does staff, Don's gone, Chief's gone, the other chief's not here. Eric, do you have anything? Jim? No? Then why are you getting up?
I just,
Just wanted to get up.
Just want to get up.
Had to say something because you hadn't said anything yet?
You know, I mean, I hope everyone understands we are operating differently than normal. And it is hard, a lot of what is going on is dealing with the normal day-to-day things and the routine and trying to stay out of the things that can become controversial just because of the limited ability to have public input in what we're going through, so. No major issues that,
All right.
that I can think of that we need to address.
Okay, is Nick still out there? No?
Someone on the line.
Oh, someone on the line?
Someone's on the line, I'm gonna unmute.
Okay. Are you on the line?
Yes,
Please state your name and address.
Marlon McKee, 1121 South 12th Street, Burlington, Iowa.
Hi, Marlon, go ahead and put it out there.
Well, I got a question for the chief. If he had other places and it was in the Hawkeye, which ones they were, why weren't they cited as well as Kelly O'Shea's?
Can we discuss that since it's not on the agenda? Okay. Chief is still here. We'll get him to the mic, Marlon.
Yeah, thanks, Marlon. That's a good question. And what happened on that day, any business that we received a complaint on, we either called or personally paid a visit to that establishment and asked for compliance. And we were trying to be fair in that aspect because we knew the order came out at noon that day, and we would ask the business owners for their compliance. So the other businesses that we made contact with that were not in compliance upon the governor's order, we asked them to close their businesses. They complied immediately and closed their businesses, the ones that we had reported to us as the police department. So there's a difference with the way that the response happened at Kelly O'Shea's versus the compliance of the other businesses that the newspaper had reported.
Does that answer your question, Marlon?
Yeah, it's just that if they knew that somebody else was open, it seemed to me, you know, that the governor put out an order that everybody be closed at noon. They could have gone around and done spot checks on these places and given them a ticket.
Well, and I can respond to that. Me proving in court that the person knew about the governor's order would be the defining question there. I could prove with Kelly O'Shea's that they knew about the order. I personally had talked to them about the governor's order and provided them with that documentation. Any other businesses I would go to initially could definitely say that they didn't know about the order or they were unaware of it in the court, and it would be difficult for me to prove just to outright issue them a citation. So to give them the benefit of the doubt when I first showed up there or when an officer shows up there or we called them for asking for their compliance and making them aware of the order personally would be where I would start at before issuing them a citation, asking for their compliance versus just going immediately to a ticket and summoning them into court. Does that answer your question, Marlon?
Yeah, I guess.
Thank you, Marlon. Anything else?
Well, when you have it open, I'll ask, I got a comment, but
Well, we're in open discussion now, so go ahead. You know, of course, on open discussion, we may or may not be able to address it if it's not on the agenda. But please, we want to hear it.
okay. What I know is all these Tiger grants and everything else, since we're not gonna have the tax dollars coming in, where are we gonna come up with all this money through all the grants and everything we're supposed to be matching? Like the Tiger grant, doing all these projects, you know, we brought up that we're not gonna have the tax dollars to cover all this stuff, just wondering what's gonna happen with it.
I'll have Jim go ahead and answer that.
Tiger Grant itself has no required match on it. We had two separate other grants that did, the boating infrastructure grant that we hadn't approved, and that was one that was a discussion over the last few weeks, and we're at a point where those funds were pulled out of the overall project partially because of the matching requirements on it. We hadn't committed to taking those funds. We hadn't signed any documents on them, so that's not a major problem. We were able to make the Tiger Grant work with that, making sure that we still have addressing all the topics that were part of the Tiger Grant that had been partially funded with the boating infrastructure grant, getting it pulled out so that we could get rid of a lot of that local match requirement. There still is one local match requirement on, I think, I need to even check the wording to see if there is. There might be one on the Great Places one for the splash pad. We were awarded $300,000. I'm not sure if we have to come up with local funds or not on that, but we already agreed to doing that project quite a while ago. We're in a position where that's a little bit more problematic to pull out of. But if that is the case and we have a local match requirement, the local match would be in the 100,000 range. In keeping in perspective, the Tiger Grant is a $16 million project.
Does that answer your question, Marlon?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, we recognize this is one of the major concerns that.
I'll get better notes for next time.
Yeah, we recognize it, Marlon. This is a project that has a lot of moving pieces, and we are in some challenging times. I think that this is a project that can move forward successfully even with that. It will still be very challenging for our downtown community, and that's probably the larger concern that I would have than the local matches and how we make sure that we can keep our local businesses successful as we go through this project.
Anything else, Marlon?
Not at this time.
All right, thank you for calling in, sir. Council? Oh, wait a minute. Steph, do you have anything? Jess, anything? Jessica, do you have something? Oh, just the calling. All right. Kathleen, you don't have anything? Robert?
Hi.
No. Matt?
Yeah, I do want to, and I know there's probably nobody on the line right now, but I do want to make a point of saying that over the last couple of weeks, most of the council members up here have sat through a number of presentations and phone calls where we've received a significant amount of information from a ton of agencies, both at the federal and the state level. If there's people out there that need assistance or they have questions about programs, I don't think any one of the people up here would say that they wouldn't make themselves available to answer those questions, particularly in regard to the PPP program. You can speak to any one of us. You can talk to your banker. But I had 4 or 5 conversations with people last week who had no idea that these programs existed. And they had no idea how they could benefit, and every single one of them were barbers and hairstylists and waitresses who hadn't received any information. So I hope that maybe that message gets out someplace other than this room, but we are available if you need us.
Yeah, that single operator one, that was not very well publicized.
It wasn't, but
So-
there's a ton of help out there for people who are struggling, a ton. There's no reason why if you have lost your job or even been minutely affected by COVID-19 that you shouldn't be reaching out to look at what resources are available.
Bill?
Just stay safe, stay healthy.
Linda?
Just wanted to chime in that there's been a lot of contamination in the recycling bins, and we need to really be careful. It needs to be number 1, number 2, or number 5. So keep those clean, or they're gonna have to shut them down. So I'm glad that you're recycling, hats off to you, but make sure we don't contaminate the recycling bins. And everybody stay safe, a very difficult time for a lot of people. Just be gentle on yourself.
I do have, hey, Nick, if he's still here, I do have one thing that we may have to discuss or bring up with the weather getting warmer. Our flood wall, first of all, is beautiful from the river. It's beautiful from the ground. But with there not being a fence on top of it, a chain link like we used to have, we're probably going to post some signage that please do not sit on the river flood wall. I called the chief, or I called the police department the other day because there was someone that had their 5-year-old dangling their legs sitting on top of the flood wall, dangling over the side. And then people are starting to do that with some regularity. It's kind of like our sewer trail thing. This is not a sitting spot. We might have to put some signage up. So I'd like that brought up for us to discuss next work session, please. Okay, you got to protect people against themselves. Other than that, for the most part, Burlington, thank you for the way you've responded to COVID-19. Keep supporting your local merchants and support both the mom and pops and the corporates. The corporates employ a lot of people here. So if there's anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to close.
Second.
I waited for the second on that one. Kathleen, can we have a vote, please?
Mopin,
Yes.
Ricker,
Yes.
Phillips,
Aye.